Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Inspiring Life Journeys. Today, we have an amazing guest with us who's a dear friend of mine and a mentor, Mike. And before we bring on Mike, I'm going to just give you a short intro about what our show is about. So hang on tight. So,
Hello there.
Mike, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Mike, I'm going to read a quick intro about you. I know I've known you for so long, and you've been a great friend, a mentor to me. But I want to make sure I don't miss anything of all your amazingness that we have. So I'm just going to read it out to you, and let's go from there first. So,
I'll let you know if it's true. We'll see what happens.
okay, I'm sure every bit of it is. So, Mike Wolf is a self made freedom lifestyle entrepreneur, a seasoned investor, and an international speaker. He's been investing in real estate for almost 30 years and has been involved in several other entrepreneurial ventures. He's a regular contributor in the media and his extensive background in business, entrepreneurship, and real estate. His experience investing in the US as well as a Canadian has given Mike a unique perspective on taxation and other cross border investing issues. Mike not only loves investing in real estate, but he loves teaching his students. And Mike, I can say that you're awesome at that. You're really great. He has helped thousands of students successfully invest in his turnkey properties and as well as teaching others strategies on how to do it themselves. He's passionate about showing people how to be successful, to invest and grow. He's passionate entrepreneurship and shares his wisdom. As a heart centered entrepreneur, his passion is giving back to the entrepreneurial community to help people make informed, educated decisions to build long term passive income and wealth for themselves and their families. He helps people realize their dreams of creating both time, location, and financial freedom. By teaching strategies to achieve passive income, Mike believes that you should love what you do every day and you will, right, enjoy life and enjoy all that that has to offer. So, Mike, before we get on to your journey in life, because I think all your journey right from the time you're young to what you are right now, all of us learn from experiences, and I know you've got lots of those to share with them. But I'm also excited to learn about how you create time, financial freedom, and a lifestyle which you can enjoy. So before we get into all that, Mike, I'm going to go back to your very, very early years of growing up. Can you tell us a little bit about what those were? So let's say till the time you graduated from high school. So give us some little nuggets from your life at that time, and also as to what you learned at that time.
Yeah, wow. That goes back a long, long time. I don't even know if I can remember that. But yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I always liked to be. I was kind of a dreamer. I always thought really big, and people asked what I wanted to be. I always said astronaut and stuff like that. I guess many kids do that, but I always kind of thought things were possible, but other people told me were not possible. And so, over time, you start to hear, people say, "Oh, that's not realistic," or "That's not going to happen," and you start to believe that. But I can say that once I got older, I went back to my young mindset and decided that a lot of things that people say you can't do, you actually can. But anyway, I think my childhood, I grew up in Montreal. My mother got divorced when I was 2, actually, and from 2 to 7, I didn't have a dad. But I remember we grew up. Actually, at the time, I didn't know. Well, we were in a very, very poor neighborhood. Once my mother got divorced, we were in a very poor neighborhood. I'm not sure how she managed to support me and my brother, and always managed to put food on the table. But I'm very grateful for that. And then when she got remarried when I was 7, all of a sudden we went from a very poor neighborhood to a very affluent neighborhood. And that's the only time that's when I started to realize, hey, we used to live in a really crappy neighborhood. To me, that was just normal. I go, and like any other Canadian kid, I'd go out and play street hockey with my friends, and that just seemed normal. But when we went to that other more affluent neighborhood, I realized that things were a lot different there, and I could see a big contrast. And I think that inspired me later on to want to figure out, well, how does money work, and why aren't we taught this in schools? And I realized that a lot of the stuff that I did learn in school hasn't really served me that well. I remember in grade 3, I learned how to square dance, and I can't really say I've used that a whole lot in my life. But everything that I've learned about money, everything that I've learned about being successful, I had to kind of learn on my own. Going back to my younger years, I remember when I was in high school, I was in grade 12. Had no idea what I wanted to do the following year when I graduated. And my parents were always, preaching to me, you've got to be a doctor or lawyer, doctor, lawyer, doctor, lawyer. That's all I ever heard growing up. And I'm terrified of blood. So doctor was not in the cards ever. But I remember, you watch those shows on TV and the lawyers would have those fancy offices and it looked pretty glamorous. So yeah, that's when I decided I was going to live my parents' dream and become a lawyer. And so I got my, in my younger years, I got my first degree, and with that degree came a whole bunch of student loans. And that's when I decided I didn't go right into real estate. I actually worked for the phone company for a little bit because it was government, it was unionized, and it paid really well. And I realized very quickly I'm not really cut out for the corporate world, but being somebody who was previously a student making $0 and working hard and not having any money in the bank and struggling, to all of a sudden getting pretty decent paychecks. And once again, it was another really big contrast for me. And I could see I could see the power of money, but I could also see that I didn't really want to trade my time for it that much. I didn't really want to go. I felt like I went from university to kindergarten when I took that job, because all of a sudden it's like, hey, well, you start at this time and you take your lunch break at this time. And it felt like I was going back in some ways in the wrong direction. So anyways, while I was at that phone company, I actually bought my first couple of pieces of real estate, not really thinking I was going to be a real estate investor later on. Just, I started to make decent money. I could now qualify for a mortgage to buy my first home to live in. And shortly after I did that, my mortgage broker calls me up and goes, Mike, you know what? If you want, I can get you another mortgage if you want to buy a second property. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm a single guy that's like 23 years old. Why on earth would I want a second property? And anyway, he explains, well, you buy this property, you put tenants in it, they pay your mortgage every month. Anything over and above that, you get to keep and spend and do what you want with. And, in 25, 30 years from now, this thing is paid off, and that's your retirement. And that was a game changer for me. That statement right there. I never, ever, even though it seems so logical, it never really crossed my mind, especially at that point in my life. And so I bought my second property. I had one for myself now. One is a rental property just down the street from where I was living. And a couple of years after I bought that, the market took off, kind of like what we saw during COVID, where things were just like competing offers on everything. Well, that happened for me. And I remember sitting at my cubicle at the phone company one day thinking, you know what, this is, by the way, around 2.5 years after I bought the property. So I remember thinking, man, the last 2 years I made this much at the phone company and I don't really love it. I made this much in real estate. I don't even know what I'm doing in real estate, but I'm starting to love this. And so that was a monumental shift in my life, because I basically told my parents, you know what, I'm not going back to law school. That's your dream for me. And, I finally found something that was the first time in my life where I found something that resonated with me, that I knew I wanted to do, and also that I could do. The astronaut thing, I realized as time went on, probably wasn't going to happen, but this is something that I could do. And so that was the start of, me creating wealth through real estate and learning eventually how to make my money work for me instead of me trading my time for money. And it all happened kind of by mistake. Although I don't necessarily believe in mistakes. I think, anyway, I'm just very grateful for whatever reason the universe put me on that path. And, not everything has been smooth. I've certainly made a lot of mistakes along the way, and I've had some ups and downs. And but I know that there's nothing else I would have rather done for these past 34 years. And now, not only do I do it, I love to teach other people, how I created this. Because once again, none of this stuff is taught in schools. I had to figure this out on my own, and I had to figure out a lot by messing up and making big mistakes. And anyway, I don't square dance anymore, but I still do real estate investing. So I think that says something.
Yeah, that's great, Mike. You maybe you'll get back into square dancing as a part as a hobby sometime, right?
I don't think that's not going to happen, but
Yeah, but Mike, there are some great lessons from just that little conversations of your years from from the time you're growing up to the time you're 23. One of some of the things that I felt was you followed your passion. A lot of us uh, we have tried we get tried to be put in a mold as to what other people want us to be, and that may not be what you really are, but you took that step to follow your passion there, and you had that guidance. And what a great 23 to own one house and then add on another one in a couple of years and launch that. And there's one statement that you made, and I'd like you to repeat that, is make money work for you. Could you just
that's huge. And it was a bit, and once again, a contrast. Here I am working at the phone company, going in 5 days a week. Didn't hate it. I was grateful for it because it was a good paying job, especially for somebody my age. And also, like I said, I came from a world where I'd be studying and I was working hard, but of course you don't get any money for being a student. You get quite the opposite. You get a lot of bills racking up. So when I bought that first property, that was at the same time working at the phone company, I could see the contrast. At the end of the month, I get a paycheck from that property, but I didn't have to do anything to get it. I had to buy it the one time, but it was giving me checks month after month after month, and I didn't have to do anything to get it. And the phone company, in order to get that paycheck, I still had to show up. And
Mhm.
so just seeing that contrast actually unfold before my eyes, and just seeing, I don't, and I didn't hate my job at the phone company, but I definitely preferred getting a paycheck on autopilot. And so I realized that, hey, if I could take this to a further extreme, instead of having one property working for me, what if I had two? What if I had five? What if I had 10? What if I had 100? Uh, I knew that eventually that could give me my freedom and allow me to do whatever I wanted without having to go and punch a clock. And so it was starting to formulate in my mind. I didn't exactly know how I was going to do it, but I knew one day I wanted to have a lot more properties and that I wanted to have this time freedom. Because, like I said, I've always been a dreamer, and something like travel is my biggest passion. As we both share that passion. I just, by the way, I went to Norway. That was my 83rd country that I've been to,
Wow.
but it's all because of the passive income and being able to get my time back thanks to my money working for me. The harder your money works for you, the less you have to work for you. And so that was a concept I knew early on. I didn't quite know how to get to that point, but I could see that conceptually it worked. And my first property became a case study for that for me.
Great, great. And that has kind of grown, right, Mike? You've been investing in a lot of different states. And I know at one point you did a lot in Georgia. I'm not sure whether that's still your market there.
Yeah.
But for somebody who's thinking about, wow, I'd like to do that, maybe get my one property and see how I can make it turn it over into multiple ones going by. You've got some great teachings, but I'd like you to just kind of give us a short, quick tips of to somebody who's ready to take that step but a little hesitant, and
Yes.
what it kind of involves into the as to what they could do to take that leap.
Yes. Well, I can tell you, as somebody who's now been in the business for 34 years, that a lot of things I wish I knew when I first started, I'm gonna share some of those right now. Because, back then I thought that it's gonna take me a long time to get to that, 5, 10, 100 properties, because every time I thought I had to save a down payment and qualify for a mortgage, and nothing could be further from the truth. As a matter of fact, most of the properties that I now own, I bought, not all of them, but quite a few I bought with very little or no money down. And you reach a certain point in your career, believe it or not, the banks, when I was first starting out and didn't really know what I was doing, because I had that government job, they could not wait to give me a mortgage. And ironically, now I really know what I'm doing. I've been doing this for a long time. I don't mess up anymore, or very, very rarely. And the banks will never give me a mortgage because they see me as high risk because I own a lot of properties. And they think, well, if the market comes down, he's going to lose all his properties. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. If the market comes down, I just buy more. But anyway, the reason I say all this is that if you're watching right now and you think, oh, well, I wish I could get in, but real estate's so expensive, or my credit's horrible, or I don't have a down payment, forget about all that. I actually my website's on here, mikewolfmastery.com. If you go to that website and you wait about 4 or 5 seconds, there's going to be a pop down or pop up thing that says get my free ebook. It's going to talk about 7 different strategies you can do with very little or no money. So I'm not going to go into those strategies. I know this isn't a real estate show per se. However, so number one, I just want to set expectations for people that you don't have to think that you don't have to have $1 million already in your bank account to get into real estate investing. Matter of fact, one of my students picked up a property for $7,200 in Texas that was worth around $90,000 or $100,000, and he didn't have to qualify for it. That wasn't the mortgage. That was the actual purchase price. That wasn't $7,200. Wasn't the down payment. So anyway, get all that off your mind if you think you can't do this, because those are your limiting factors. But even if you, so anyway, when I first started, like I said, I did it very transactionally. I bought that first property, which was the one to live in, and I bought the second one. And after that, I did it more over time. I started learning how to do this more strategically. So, for example, that first property that I bought, I eventually sold it and took the equity. Now I had a bunch of equity in there, and I used that to turn that into 2 properties. So number one is that the properties you buy today, if you buy smart and strategically, they will eventually lead to help you build up your portfolio. So as they go up in value, you can sell them, take that money and turn 1 into 2, 2 into 4, etc. Or you can do an equity takeout, actually not even get rid of the property. As the property goes up, we can pull some capital out of there and use that to purchase more property. So when you see people that have a whole big portfolio of real estate, they didn't start that way. They didn't go out one day and say, I got $10 million sitting in my bank. I don't know what to do with it. I think I'll just go buy a bunch of apartment buildings. No, it's nothing like that at all. They started small and they built their way up as the market continued to increase. Quite a few of my clients actually, who, before COVID were working really, really hard. During COVID, because they had a bunch of properties, they now became literally millionaires because, on average, I'd say, if we look across markets, and some of them very much exceeded this, but on average, probably most of the homes that I own went up, let's say, $100,000 per door. And so if you own 10 properties, suddenly for doing nothing except for owning this real estate that's also generating cash flow every month, just owning those 10 properties, though, all of a sudden you made over $1 million doing absolutely nothing. And that's the power of real estate. There's a great saying, don't wait to buy real estate, buy real estate and wait. And you'll never see a reality show get rich slowly in real estate and make a very boring TV show. But most of the people I know that are multimillionaires, they got that way just because they bought real estate, they held on to it, let the market do its thing. And eventually, as that happened, suddenly they had, a lot of my friends, like I said, are now millionaires that literally 2 years ago were not millionaires. And now they can access that money. They can go and borrow against their properties, take that to expand their portfolio even further. And guess what? When the next boom happens and people are fighting over properties, they'll add another $1 million or $2 million to their net worth. But once again, you don't have to do anything to get it. So that's really, in a nutshell. I obviously could speak for months and months and months on all the different strategies that you can do to build up a portfolio. But in all honesty, most people with big portfolios everything I've got today is because of that one property I bought 34 years ago that I almost talked myself out of because I was a little fearful. So my advice to everybody is get in the game. You don't feel like you have to be a real estate tycoon, know everything there is to know. Get your first property, get a long-term rental, short-term rental. If you don't feel you have enough money for a down payment, read my ebook. But just get in the game. Just get in the game.
Right. Yeah. And I think, Mike, in your teachings, I know you also talked about how you can work with other people's money. It doesn't even have to be your own, right? To get
Well, here's the thing. Yeah. As you become an expert, so for example, my student picked up a property for $7,200. He got that at an auction. So imagine you go to a real estate investment meeting somewhere. You go on meetup.com, you go to a real estate investment meetup where there's other real estate investors, and you tell people, hey, I just bought this property for $7,200. They're going to go, what? You did what? And because the skills involved to go and buy at this auction, if you don't know what you're doing, you will lose all your money. So it's something called tax deeds. Tax deeds are where if somebody hasn't paid their property taxes in 2, 3, 4 years, the county puts the home on the auction block because they need that to keep their schools open and their hospitals, etc. But most people don't know how to do it properly. And if you go to this auction, you're going to lose your shirt. But if you know how to do it, imagine you go to a meetup group and say, yeah, I took this training. He took a training for me, and I've got a team on the ground. And the only thing stopping us from doing 10 more of these deals is more capital. Well, if you're somebody who's going to a meetup group and you don't know how to get in the game, a lot of people go there to learn how to invest in real estate. They can't circumvent you because if they go to the auction, they're going to lose their money. They might not. I mean, it's not something you can just go figure out by showing up at the auction. So it's much easier to say, hey, well, I'll give you $10,000. Why don't you go pick up another one and we'll do a joint venture on it? And so that's the beauty of it, is that you don't even have to, even when you are using money to purchase real estate, it doesn't have to be your money. And that's the other reason I love real estate. Whether you're using bank money, you can use a lot of leverage. And leverage, by the way, is a great thing if you use it properly. It can be a really bad thing if you don't. But if you have a great strategy and it's tested, you've done something and you know it works, and you've tested it again, and now you can just add more money to it. And once again, other people's money, there's no limit. And like I said, I'm a dreamer. There's no limit to how many properties you could have, because you don't have to worry about down payment anymore. If you're using other people's cash, you don't have to worry about bank loans anymore. Anyway, the reason this gets me really excited is if you wanted to go buy crypto, which I'm not a fan of it, but if you wanted to go buy crypto, you have to physically go save up that money to buy the crypto. And nobody's going to go and say, hey, well, just use $1 million of my dollars. We'll do a joint venture, because they can buy it on their own. You're not bringing anything to the table that they can't do by themselves. But with real estate, once you learn some strategies that other people don't know how to do, it becomes really easy to go and say to somebody else, hey, the only thing slowing me down, I could do 10 more just like this, is I don't have enough capital. And of course, people are going to want to do a joint venture with you, especially if you're doing all the work. You've already got the education and training, and you're taking away the risk for them. Becomes a win-win. So anyway, I could go on and on because I get super excited, obviously. But
that's awesome.
but that's
Yeah, Mike, I know you used to, I'm not sure if you restarted it back. You used to take your students on the auction tour.
I haven't started up since COVID. So yeah, we did 4-day trainings, and my favorite place to do that particular auction is in Texas. So we go to Texas, we spend 4 days together, 2 days in a classroom, and I teach you step by step the blueprint of how to do this safely. And then day 3, we'd actually go around, driving around the city, looking at the properties, because sometimes they look really good on paper, but you get there, no, you don't want to bid on that. And then day 4, we go as a group to the auction. And so I stopped during COVID. Of course, the auctions shut down during COVID, and they did start up probably around a year ago now. They restarted, but because it's government, and no offense to any government employees, but they don't act like entrepreneurs. If it's an entrepreneur and you have a bunch of foreclosures on your plate, you're going to get them all sold off and get investors buying them. Because the government, they've been very slow to get back in the game. And so once I find that they've got more inventory and enough deals that it makes sense to learn how to do this, I'm going to start doing trainings again. But I never like taking people for a training where they can't actually apply it, or it's like, well, maybe you'll get to do this a year from now, because a year from now you're going to forget. So yeah, as of now, I don't have any trainings on scheduled, but I have people that go every month on my behalf. I have people on the ground in Texas that are going to the auctions to see what the opportunities look like, and they're slowly getting better. So one of these days, I'm looking forward to teaching some more students.
Yeah, I've been waiting for that. I know.
Me too. I'm super excited.
That'd be great to do that and learn from you and be on the ground seeing
it's a
you
lot.
live in action.
It's a lot of fun. It's very being at that auction. It's the energy is like off the charts. It's super exciting, but it's also a very dangerous place to be. That's where the danger is that you get really excited and it's hard not to bid, even if you don't know what you're doing. And you can literally, I've seen people make hundreds of thousands of dollars literally in a split second by getting the right property. And I've seen people lose literally hundreds of
Mm.
thousands of dollars in a split second by getting the wrong properties and not knowing how to do the due diligence. So once again, I'm going to give a disclaimer that don't just show up at an auction saying, "Oh, Mike got these great deals," because you probably will not get a great deal unless you have. If you don't know the due diligence, you're just going to get yourself in trouble. So just I
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
emphasize that enough.
yeah. You gotta. Yeah, there's a big risk there if you're not sure. If you really somebody like me who goes there who doesn't know anything, just goes and bids on it, it could land you in the big trouble there.
Big time. I mean, what's funny is I get emails all the time. Like, you just tell me the basics. That's kind of like if I taught you the basics of doing brain surgery. You don't. The basics aren't going to do you any good. You need to know this inside out because it's that one
Mhm.
thing you didn't know that's going to mess you up. And so you need the full blueprint. So, but I get that all the time. Can you just tell me like the basics so I can go next month? Yeah, the basics are don't go. That's the basics. So,
Yeah. So Mike, in all your years of thing, what is one lesson that you've learned and you would really like to tell people that who are into it, who are really into real estating or even thinking about it? Well, what is that one thing that you've learned that you would have done differently?
yeah.
Or yeah.
Well, I think the biggest thing is you got to remember when I started, I was 23 years old, and obviously over time, my circumstances changed. I got married, I had a daughter, I got divorced, I have two grandkids now. A lot of things have changed in my the time I've been doing this. And when I was younger, um, it's very easy to become addicted to real estate investing once you get going, once you learn a few strategies, because especially when you go from the corporate world like I did, and you're going to an office every day, and now all of a sudden you have freedom. You're outdoors. You're doing meetings at coffee shops. You're on patios, and um, it's a lot of fun. But it's also very easy to get caught in the trap of, even though we get into real estate to give ourselves freedom, it's very easy to get in that caught in that trap of becoming workaholics. And I
Mm.
definitely experienced this. So right now I'm very calm. As always, I'm in travel mode, and I don't really work very hard anymore. As you know, I'm almost always traveling, and I still have those passive income paychecks coming in, but I'm not trading my time to get them anymore for the most part, except doing stuff I love, like teaching. But um, there was a time where I was flipping properties and I was very, very successful at it. And it was showing up. My bank account was great. But guess what? If we could measure relationships, my relationships would be a zero. I had big bank account, not very good in the relationship department, not very good in the health department because I didn't have time to take care of myself. And you're always eating fast food. So my biggest piece of advice is, right from the get-go, if your goal is to get freedom, don't ever do things that take away your freedom. So, but I used to work, I remember I'd be working 12, 14-hour days. And when I was younger, I thought the way to have more money is to trade more time. Well, you get to a certain point where you don't have any more time to give. If you want to be able to eat, sleep, maybe see your kids once in a while. And there were days where I would literally leave home in the morning. It would be dark outside still. My daughter would be sound asleep. And then I'd get home late at night. My daughter would be sleeping again. And I'd miss the entire day. And yeah, I
Mm.
was really good at supporting my family financially, but I wasn't really supporting them in any other way. I wasn't there like I should have, like I wish I would have been, in hindsight. So now we fast forward. I've got two grandsons. They're 5 and 7, and I can spend as much time with them as I like, and I can spend as much time traveling as I like. I can spend as much time volunteering and doing give back projects as I like. And so now I did a TEDx talk in Las Vegas, actually, what, 2.5 years ago now, and it was on happiness and fulfillment and freedom. And to me, if we could take, most of us spend a good portion of our day figuring out the money thing. How do we support our families? And for most people, our brains are taught, or we're taught socially, we're taught, and so the back of our brains, like, well, obviously I've got to work harder. If I want to make more money, I've got to work harder. Well, my biggest takeaway would be don't work hard, work smart, and figure out how to use leverage, not just of other people's money, but other people's time. Like I said, I'm pretty much retired from most of my stuff. My brain doesn't shut off, so I can never fully retire. Typical entrepreneur. But my businesses still run and still make me money because I have other people. I have my dream team that goes and makes that all possible while I go do the things that are really important to me. Once again, if we had like bank accounts, if we had a happiness account and a fulfillment account, if we could measure all these things, once your bank account's at a certain point and the money comes in on autopilot because it's passive, if you don't have to even think about money anymore, and you can just focus on the things that make you happy and that light you up, and also that give you fulfillment. So for me, happiness comes from travel and seeing my grandkids and hanging out with my daughter. That's where my happiness comes from. Fulfillment comes from making a difference and giving back and helping less fortunate people. And when you have all those buckets all filled up, life becomes really, really good. When your bank account's really full and those other ones are empty, it can be very, very, very tough. I remember I was at a point in my life where I had the big house and the fancy cars and every toy a guy could possibly want. And I still go home and I feel like there's something really missing and I didn't know what it was. And like I said, I went to this, my big house that all my friends were jealous of. And I go there and it felt empty to me. It felt like I didn't know what it was. And when you're broke and you think, oh, well, once I get that money, then my life will be great. At least you have something that to work towards. But when you've done everything everybody told you, you got the education, you got the good career, you got everything, you did everything that everybody told you were supposed to do, and that you see in the movies, when you have that big house and the nice car, life's supposed to be so easy and beautiful. And it was the opposite. It was like, okay, I've done all these things, and now I don't know what's next. So anyway, luckily that's when I started to travel, and I learned a lot from my travels about what's important, and got rid of a lot of that. Eventually, got rid of all that material stuff, and it was actually more therapeutic to get rid of it than it was fun to collect it, in hindsight. But in any case, my biggest advice is just learn how to work smart. Don't like, I won't build a business now, even though I'm an entrepreneur. Like I said, my brain won't shut off, and I'm constantly building things. I only build things if I can pull myself back out of it really, really quickly. Like if I buy a business or start a business, if I can't pull myself back out and have it run by other people or automated within like a month or two, I'm not interested. I don't care how much money there is to make. I don't want to do it. So like I said, the only exception is teaching. So I have my Wolfpack, which you're a member of, where I teach people how to invest in real estate, and I teach people about business and how to do all this stuff on autopilot. But to me, that doesn't like when I'm teaching, it never feels like, I don't classify that as my work. I classify that as my give back project, because I want to share what I've learned. Before I started that during COVID, and for many years before COVID, I kept thinking, man, I want to record all my knowledge and make videos so that my grandkids won't have to work hard. They can learn from what I've done and be able to have freedom right from the get-go. So they're not going to have to go through all the trials and tribulations. And I never got around to doing it. And then when COVID started, and all of a sudden, a lot of my friends started to come to me, Mike, I lost my job. Mike, my gym got shut down. Mike, my restaurant got shut down. And that's when I started to, I realized that so many people were going through these big transformations. And so I started, instead of teaching them one at a time, I said, why don't we all just meet on Zoom? And next thing you know, my friends would show up, and then they'd bring their friends, and then they bring their friends, and it got so huge. So I started to charge to bring down the number of people. Anyway, the reason I tell you all that is I was only planning on doing the Wolfpack for 1 year, because I knew I'd be back in travel mode, and I knew I'd be, having to wake up in the middle of the night to teach. Well, once I started to build it and started to hang out with my great students such as you, it's like, I can't shut this down. This isn't a business for me anymore. This is my life's work. I get to share my life's work with other people. And so, I was on a safari not too long ago in Africa, and I was waking up at 2 and 3 in the morning to teach. And before back when I first started the Wolfpack, that was my biggest fears. I don't want to wake up 2, 3 in the morning to teach. And when I was actually in Africa, it's like, man, I felt grateful that I got to wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning to teach. I never forget about what it was like to have to go to that phone company, every day at the time that they tell me to show up there. And now I get to go and inspire other people and teach them. And I get to whatever time it is that I have to do it. To me, it's worth it. So I'd wake up at 2:59 a.m., brush my hair, make it look like I wasn't sleeping, and try to look awake on the video, and then teach for 90 minutes or 2 hours and go back to bed, and very fulfilled knowing that you're so anyway. Anything that feels like work to me, I want to pull myself out of it as quickly as possible. But if it's a give back project, whether it be the wolf pack or when I travel, a lot of times I'll go to orphanages and play with the kids, or bring them gifts, or bring water filters to places that don't have clean. Anyway, whatever it is, I don't classify that as work. The give back bucket, I love to have overflowing. The work bucket, I don't. The money's fine, so I don't have to have the work bucket overflowing at all anymore to make all the other buckets fill up. And so anyway, that's really a long way of saying that. Number one, I really recommend that if your goal is financial freedom, also make sure that you have time freedom that goes with it, because financial freedom without time freedom is very frustrating, and a lot of people get very miserable and depressed when they have that. And then the second thing is, do things for something bigger than yourself. When you give back, when you do it we often give up on ourselves. It's like, oh, well, I don't care. I'm not going to go to the gym. I'll just be overweight, whatever. We give up on ourselves. But if you do something for something bigger than yourself, then you won't give up on it. And so, as you start to get the financial freedom and the time freedom, and all these things start to just kind of, when you start to get in that flow and things start to work out for you, then find something bigger than yourself to give back to that lights you up and fulfills you. And then you're going to have an amazing, happy life, as opposed to somebody with just a big bank account but miserable. And I know I've seen so many of those people, and I feel so bad for them because they get stuck in that trap.
Yeah.
Long answer to that question.
No, that's awesome, Mike. I love, there's so many things that I can talk about that, but I love and I want to vouch for what you said, that you get up at 2 a.m. to be on the calls with us, and you're there every call, whether you're hosting the call or not, you're there. And
Just one.
yeah. So I know the first thing we ask you is, where in the world are you, Mike?
That's right. Exactly.
So today I'm going to ask you, where in the world are you? So I know you're not in Canada or in the US, right?
Actually, I am in the US. I just finished. I did 12 countries in Europe in 4 months, and then I went to Mexico for around a month and a half, and was bouncing all over Mexico. But today I'm actually in Vegas because I don't come to Vegas that often. I used to live here. I used to flip a lot of homes here back in the day. I don't hate Vegas, but to me, it's not a vacation because I used to live here. But my brother's coming here from Canada, so I thought I'd go hang out with him for 4 days, and then I'm going to fly back to Canada with him and go see my grandbabies. So I'm actually back on this side of the planet, same time zone as you, and but it's very rare that I'm in the same time zone as you. So it's
yeah. I know I think it was last week when we spoke, you were somewhere in Mexico, and a couple of weeks before that you were in Europe, in London, and everywhere else, right?
I started off a 4-month Europe tour. Well, I actually started off in Egypt. That was my 82nd country, and then I went to Norway, which is my 83rd. But then I went repeating a lot of the countries I've been to before, like Spain, Portugal, Greece, Turkey, et cetera, and that is my biggest passion.
Awesome.
And I think it just, for me, I think that I wouldn't be who I am, and I wouldn't be, like I said at the beginning, I was a dreamer as a kid, and I always dreamed that, I always wondered why people didn't go see the planet, as many places on the planet as they could. And anyway, now I'm making it a reality. So the last 10 or 11 years or so, I've been traveling pretty much full time. I go back to go see my grandkids, and then, for a little bit, and then I go hop on a plane and head somewhere else again. But I think that that's really shaped who I am as a person. And I think it's also one of the keys to my success. I think when you travel a lot, it really opens up your mind. You see how other people live. But also, it's pretty hard not to have a lot of gratitude. And I think gratitude is a very important part of success. If you're not grateful for what you've already got, then, and it's, when people ask me what's the secret to your success, I always think I want to give them this big business thing. And to me, it's gratitude and just being positivity. And that's why, number one, travel, it gives you
Mhm.
that, see how other people live. And we are so blessed. If you grew up in Canada, the United States, you won the lottery when you were born, because there's so many countries. If you had been born, you might be the equally nice, super awesome person that you are, but you would not have had some of the advantages that we have. So that's number one. Number two, like I said, I do a lot of give back stuff. So I went to these islands called Vanuatu, which are in the middle of the South Pacific. They're between Australia and New Zealand. They're kind of in the middle of nowhere, but beautiful islands. And they had got hit by a cyclone, which on this side of the planet we call a hurricane. And I was going to Fiji on vacation, and then I thought, well, that's relatively close. So I went and raised a bunch of money and got a group of entrepreneurs together, and we bought a whole bunch of water filters because they had no clean drinking water, and went there and brought them these water filters. And when you go somewhere where they don't have clean drinking water, and then you
Mhm.
get home and you turn a tap and magically clean water just appears, I mean, that's magic. So if you think that, oh, I've got nothing to be grateful for, I'm going through these tough times, and whatever it is you're going through, your bad day is better than 99% of the planet's good day. So just be grateful. And I think the more grateful you are, the more positive you are, the more great things start to happen for you. And so anyway, that's the key to my success. It's very woo woo, and it's not what most
No,
people hear, but it's
no.
very true. So
Yeah, it is so true, Mike. Travel really opens up your mind, and really shows you how blessed you are. And especially when a lot of people don't take their kids when they're young traveling, but if they just go and see what life is like outside of their world.
yeah,
um,
that brings up a really important point, because when my daughter was in grade two, back then I was married, and we took my daughter out of school for 2 years, and we traveled around the world with her. And my parents in particular, but a lot of other people said, "What, you're taking her out of school?" Now I think that's a much more common thing. Back then it was not. And
mhm,
we homeschooled her. We were teaching her on planes and trains, and she was actually reading up on the countries we'd go to before we got there, and deciding what we were going to see when we got there. Anyway, she came back so far ahead, even though, like I said, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, you're going to ruin her life," and she's going to come back really far behind. And if people tell you that, don't listen. Just I would strongly recommend, if you have the means to take your kids and show them this planet, uh,
mhm.
it's a game changer. And anyway, um, like I said, I had a lot of adversity with that decision from other people, and I'm so glad I did it. So yes, take your
Yeah,
kids, even if it
yeah.
doesn't have to be full time for 2 years, but at least show them. You know, when I was in school, I hated history. I hated history. But when you actually go see it unfold before your eyes, if you go to like Rome and you see the Colosseum in real life, or you go see the pyramids in Egypt, that's so much different than reading about it in a book. Like,
Mhm.
anyway, take your kids to see it. It'll change their life.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of the most, I think every time you go, you think that you're giving back, but really you're coming back with so much.
Yes,
Yeah, you're being blessed. Really, the people there are receiving, but then you're getting back what,
of course.
so much of
What
gratitude and
makes me
happiness.
know, though, is, I mentioned earlier that we kind of won the lottery being born here. It gives us
Yeah.
more options. But I also have learned it doesn't necessarily mean that we're happier. You go to some countries. Um, I was the first time I went to Thailand, and I'm really dating myself because I'm at a payphone because I didn't have a cell phone back then, and I have a calling card, and trying to call back home because I had somebody looking at. Back then, I was pretty involved in my business in the day to day, and for the first time, I got somebody to look after all my stuff for me, while I went to Thailand. And I'm at the phone struggling, and the calling card's not working, and a taxi driver sees me struggling. He goes, "No, no, no, that card's not going to work, not going to work." And he drives me in his cab to a 7-Eleven store, talks to the person behind the counter in Thai, gets me the right card, brings me back to the payphone. And I wanted to give him this huge tip. He wouldn't even take cab fare. And it's like, what? And to me, that was like, at that point, I was like super much into, I was working really hard, and I was super into making money. And I'm pretty sure that this guy, most people, I won't say most people, a lot of people in Thailand live literally from meal to meal, let alone paycheck to paycheck. And he wouldn't even take cab fare and for helping
Mm.
me out. and he doesn't. And so I learned a lot just from something like that, just an act of kindness of how important it is to, he don't, and I've gone to countries where they want something like after scale, I helped you where big tip, they want a tip, they got their hand out, which is fine. But it just changed my mindset around humanity in a lot of ways, just that one simple incident. And, going back to Thailand, you always see them smiling, and most of them don't have a lot financially, but they're super happy.
Mhm.
And so I think
Yeah.
we learn from them too, that, yeah, we have
Mhm.
the potential to make a lot more money, but a lot of us are miserable and they have to struggle a lot more to make money, but they're always smiling and happy. And they're brought up that, yeah, if you can make other people smile and you can make other people happy, that they believe in karma, that's going to come back to you. And so I
Mhm.
get so much from other cultures too. I never go saying, oh, well, we're superior. Every culture is amazing and it's all just different. I do still feel like I won the lottery because I wouldn't have most likely the opportunity to go see all these other cultures if it weren't for the fact I was born in this side of the planet. But I never look at, oh, we're better than them,
Yeah.
or they could, they should be more like us. No, I'm grateful that we have such diversity as you travel this amazing planet, meet different people that have different values, different religions, eat different food. That's what makes it so exciting.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And I love that you're doing your volunteer, you're volunteering because that's a big piece of travel that a lot of people are, don't do that. But it's such a rewarding thing to give back some of your time.
Well,
That's all you.
I can tell you, as somebody who travels full time, that when I was younger, I thought that one day I'm going to make enough money that I could just go lie on the beach all day. Because I'm a beach person. I love the water. That's my happy place. I love sun, sand. I don't know how I was born in Canada. Anyway, that was a mix up. But uh, but I can tell you that when I finally got to a point where I could do that, after about 5 days lying on a beach, it's like, okay, my brain feels like it's turning to mush. I don't really feel like I have a purpose. Like I got to do something. And so I think once again, you've got to have that balance where you,
Mhm.
focus on the things that are important. And, I think doing the things you love, hanging out on a beach is great if you do it as a treat. Just like I love ice cream. If I ate it every single day, after a while, that just becomes your norm, and I'd get really fat. But that just becomes your norm, and then you don't appreciate it. You're not grateful for it. When you have it as a treat once in a while, that's different. So when I go somewhere, when I went to Fiji, yeah, I spent a few days on the beach, but then I went and I flew to Vanuatu and I brought these water filters and taught them how to use them, and that was so fulfilling. And then I think when you once again you have to fill up all those buckets and keep them balanced, because if your happiness and fun, if your fun bucket is overflowing, but you don't really feel like you have a purpose in life, that's also not good. It sounds good in theory before you have it, but once you get it, it's very easy to become depressed doing the thing that you thought you love most,
Yeah.
because you don't have a challenge anymore. It's just something you do every day. I think our brains we need to stay challenged. That doesn't
Mhm.
mean to me that, oh, I've got to keep my job and work hard because that's what gives me my chance. No, don't do that. Do things that are uh, for something bigger than yourself, that are not for money, that that just light you up. My favorite. I don't know if we have time. Anyway, my
Yeah,
favorite.
we do.
I just go off on these tangents, but a lot of people ask me my favorite real estate project. Well, after Hurricane Katrina, I went and built a team, and we fixed up a lot of homes in New Orleans for people that got displaced by the storm. A lot of the insurance companies never paid out, and they said, "Oh well, it was wind first. You're covered for water damage, but not wind, or vice versa, or whatever." Anyway, a lot of people lost their homes, were literally homeless, or they had to go. They went to a different state, and so I went and built a team, and we fixed up a bunch of homes, much like we would if we were going to flip them, but it wasn't for profit. We fixed up these homes, brought a lot of people back, and that was my favorite real estate project I ever did. And these were very tough homes to fix. They were under 20 feet of water for like 2 and 3 weeks straight, mold from top to bottom. We have to gut
Mm.
entire insides. And I've done projects that I did a ton less work than that, made a lot of money. And that one I made nothing, but the fulfillment from it and seeing the difference that you made. Whenever I go back to New Orleans, whenever I see this community that we fixed, like no amount of money can light you up the same way as that feeling of knowing that you changed a bunch of people's lives. And so once again, yeah, I could have made that a for profit project, made a lot of
Mhm.
money on it, and would have put more money in my bank account, but it wouldn't have filled up that other bucket. And once again, when all of them are at the same level, that's when life is the most amazing, in my opinion. So anyway,
Yeah.
several of these
So
long
true,
stories,
Mike.
I get very excited. So
Yeah, no, so true. I love that. I haven't looked at it with that way. The way you mentioned is your wealth. It's not how wealthy you are, but in your bank account, but it's your bank account, your happiness and fulfillment.
yes.
You do need to have a balance of all of those to live a satisfied life and joyful life.
And by the way, I don't want to discount how important that money bucket is, though, because I
Mhm.
know a lot of people though, and they're very giving and they're very heart centered, which is awesome, but they're not able to give back on a large scale because they're not in a good position themselves financially. And so it's just like when you go on an airplane. I'll never forget the first time I was on an airplane, and they said, if the oxygen mask comes down from the ceiling, make sure you put yours on first. I go, what? You're going to put yours on before your kids? And then it clicked in. Well, if you're not in a good position, how are you going to help your kids? If you're
Right.
dead, you and your kids are both in a bad position. So you got
Hmm.
to get yourself on a good spot financially. And once
Hmm.
you do, if you can have it so that money comes in automatically, passively, that's when you can really focus on those other two and not even think about the money bucket anymore. That just refills itself automatically. So, but yeah, so I don't want to discount it because a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to focus on that happiness and fulfillment. Mike's right. I don't need money. You need money. You
Yes.
absolutely need money, and you need, whenever I hear people say that to me, it's like, oh, I don't care that much about money. Well, if you don't care that much, go tell your boss that you're going to work for free. I've never seen anybody take me up on that yet. So you do need money, unfortunately, to survive in society today. And the good thing is it's not that hard. We just all struggle with it because it's not taught in schools. And
Hmm.
it's very unfortunate because, to me, the school system was built a long time ago to really prepare human beings to work on assembly lines and fulfill a certain purpose. And think about how much society has changed over here, how different life looks today. Yet schools haven't evolved that much. And anyway, that's a whole other episode. So I won't go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. No, thank you, Mike. I do have to talk a little bit about your travels now.
Sure. Please
Can't go
do.
without
That is
talking about that piece of it.
passionate.
So I know you've gone. You said you've gone to 83 countries. That's amazing. That's amazing. I don't. I'm not going to ask you to really. You probably have a lot of favorites, but what are the two countries that really stand out and you would go back in a heartbeat?
Oh boy, that's like the toughest question in the world for
I
me.
know.
Because I have a lot of interest, and like if I was going on a beach vacation, I would go to and I'd go somewhere different than if I also love live theater. So obviously, I'm gonna go to New York or London for that, but I wouldn't go there for beaches. But I think the ones that have had the most profound, impact on me, um, I'd have to say Costa Rica for one. Number one, I think there's some sort of magical energy there, and it's in other places too. I've experienced it in like Hawaii, the Hawaiian
Mhm.
Island, Bali. There's certain places that just have this energy, but um, one of the first times I went to Costa Rica, there's a part of the country called La Fortuna, and there's a
Mhm.
volcano there called Arenal, which used to be very active until I want to say 9 years ago. And I had never seen an active volcano at the first time I had gone there. And I remember I stayed at a hotel called the Observatory, and it was called that because it was previously owned by the Smithsonian, and they used to measure the seismic activity of the volcano from there. It was pretty much as close as you could get and still be safe from not being covered in lava. So I had this really nice room, and I had a balcony that faced the volcano. And I remember sitting out there the first time and just staring at it, thinking, oh, I can't wait till this thing erupts. I can't wait. And it was dark, and you'd hear all these nocturnal animals making their noises and doing their thing. And then all of a sudden, it erupted for the first time for me. And my jaw just dropped because there's these big black boulders that were on fire, and they go,
Mm.
you hear them literally bouncing down the hill. And my jaw
Right.
just dropped. And all of a sudden, all these nocturnal animals just went silent. It just was as if they were like just observing it too for the first time. And it was really magical for me because I've never been religious per se, but I've always been kind of spiritual. To me, it was very undeniable that we're just a very small speck in this universe, and there's something so much bigger than us, so much more powerful. Just watching this volcano and being near like a rainforest and all these animals, it was just a very magical experience for me that made me realize what our role is. All these things that we think are major problems, or things that are going wrong, they're so minor and in the big scheme of things, all these things going on. So it really, that day just really changed me. Just really kind of confirmed some things I kind of knew, and also put some new ideas in my head. And I also
Mm-hmm.
find whenever I go there, that volcano unfortunately is dormant now. I hope it erupts again because I loved it. But just going for a walk in the rainforest and seeing all this life around you, it's magical. Like a lot of times, as you know, we both belong to masterminds, and some of them the same ones. A lot of times you go and you try to work on your business and you really focus on it, and nothing really comes through. You get stuck and overwhelmed. Sometimes I'll go for a walk in the rainforest, not even be thinking about my business, and just getting your brain just clear of everything and just being present. All of a sudden downloads start popping in. It's like, what? I wasn't even thinking about my business. All of a sudden this thing comes into your mind. So anyway, I've had a lot of really profound experiences. And there's also a orphanage that I like to go visit there that's close to that volcano. I like to hang out with those kids because their parents are going through the legal system to see if they're fit to be parents. And there's literally newborns in there up to I think 12. And anyway, I won't go down that. That's a long conversation too, so I won't do that. But so that's number one. Costa Rica for sure. I think the other one, and maybe it's because it's pretty recent. But there's so many. I went to a place called Cappadocia in Turkey, and when you travel a lot, and you probably find this too, you go to a lot of places. Like I was in Cape Town before my safari, for example, and I love Cape Town, but it's a long ways away. And there, I looked at the things I love about it. There's nice beaches, but then I thought, well, there's a lot of nice beaches that are closer, and all things that there's wine. There's a lot of wine closer. Anyway, there's a lot of things I liked about it, but I don't really feel a need to go back because it had the things that I liked that I could get elsewhere. I went to Cappadocia, and for those of you who don't know, look it up. Cappadocia, maybe one.
Yeah, something like Cappadocia.
Cappadocia. It's got these caves that people used to live in once upon a time. And you can take these hot air balloons really early in the morning and fly over. It's just a magical experience. It's something you can't get anywhere else. And I've been to a few other places that I would rank almost as high as that, like Petra, like in Cambodia, Angkor Wat, of course, the pyramids in Egypt. But that one, for me, I felt like I was literally on the set of the Flintstones. And then a lot of these caves are now hotels and restaurants. There's something very magical about that place too. But yeah, I mean, I could go on and on and on. I have so many places I love. And I think that's the beauty of it. People always say, well, if you have to settle down in one place, like, I hope that never happens. Why would I have to settle down in one place?
I can't see you settling down in one place, Mike. You're too much of a world traveler here. But both of those great places, awesome places.
Strongly recommend it.
Yeah. Now, where would you like to go? You from the countries that you haven't been to. Where are you planning, or where would you like to go next?
Yeah, you know what? I had a pretty big bucket list. Now I have stuff that I want to see, but like all the stuff that was the major stuff, I have to see a pyramid. So I finally did it this past year. Surprised it took me this long. What kind of nomad doesn't get to the pyramids? But now, I have not seen a lot of South America. I've seen a lot. I've been to Peru. I've been to Colombia. So I'm actually going to do a cruise. I'm going to see some of Brazil, and I'm going to go to Argentina, Chile. And I want to get to Antarctica because it's the only continent I haven't stepped foot on yet. But yeah, and I haven't been to Alaska, but I just went to Iceland not too long ago, and it was amazing. And I've heard from people who've done both Iceland and Alaska, they preferred Iceland. So, but I'm looking at this cruise that actually goes from Seattle, has like 3 or 4 stops in Alaska, then you end up in Tokyo. So I'm thinking of using that as my gateway to get back into Asia, which I haven't done Asia since before COVID. So
yeah, we were just looking at an itinerary that went on. I think it left on October 4th. It left from LA. They went to Alaska for like 7 days, and then they cut across to Tokyo. And after they were doing the Southeast Asia. So that'll be a great one.
Yeah, exactly. That's we have so many beautiful places on this planet. And anyway, I used to post a lot of my travels on Facebook, And during COVID, I stopped because everybody was so opinionated. What, you're traveling? So I stopped. And I haven't really started up again. But back when I used to post all my travels, like people always say, oh, I'm living vicariously through you. And oh, that's my bucket list. One day I'm going to do it. Well, another piece of advice, like we don't know how long we're going to be here. You don't know. None of us know. We just find a way sooner than later, because don't live vicariously through other people. Go and experience it for yourself. That's where you get the real impact, the real change in your life, the real transformations. I think the best personal development you could ever do is to go travel the world.
Right. 100% agree with you, Mike. Totally agree. I know there were some of my friends who said, oh, I'll do it when I'm retired.
Yeah.
But things happen after your retirement. You may not be in the same situation health-wise or circumstances-wise. So just do it when you can.
I feel very blessed because I'm 57 and I can still, and I belong to several nomad groups, and most of those people in those groups are like in their 20s and 30s. So I think I'm the oldest living nomad on the planet. But I feel very grateful that, when they go on hikes, I don't go on crazy hikes, but if they go for like a 2-hour hike, I can keep up with them. But I'm pretty sure 10 years from now, unfortunately, I probably won't. That's just a fact of life. And so, you got to do these things while you can. And life doesn't usually maybe it gets easier financially, but health-wise, we have only so much control over that. And anyway, do it as soon as you possibly can. If that's something that lights you up and something you've wanted to do, don't put it off, because I know so many people that had things on their bucket list that never got fulfilled, and unfortunately they passed away, with all these things they never got to do. So you just never know what your time is. And I can honestly say that, I live every day like it's my last, every single day. And I recommend everybody do that.
Mm-hmm. True. So true, Mike. Mike, thank you so much for joining us. We could go on. I know you have so much new stories and so much more nuggets. I love a lot of the things that you talked about. Just the lessons that you've learned and your real estate investment tips. I know you have a lot more to share. So I'd just like to let our listeners know, contact you at mikewolfmastery.com. Go ahead and get his free ebook and reach out to Mike. He's got some awesome programs, and you're going to learn and grow and step into the real estate investing world, or grow that if you haven't done so already.
And even if you don't want to be a real estate investor, like in the trenches, actually finding deals. If you're a dentist, start buying rental properties. No matter what you do, start buying rental properties. Doesn't mean you have to do it full time, but just start creating some passive income so that one day you can get off the treadmill and not have to go to the office every day, and instead, fill up those other buckets.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, right, Mike? You don't have to do just as this your full-time career. You
Exactly.
Just grow it along with your whatever other passion you have. But this is one piece of it that could grow, and then you could live a life, whatever life you choose.
Still in real estate, it will change your life, and it might, even if you own one property. Imagine if you would have bought one property before COVID, you'd be up a lot more. You'd have a lot more equity. Your net worth would have gone up tremendously. And what would you have done to achieve that? Nothing. If you have a job, you're going to the office 40 hours a week, and you're usually under rewarded for how much effort you put in. So anyway, think about that. Make your money work for you.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks a lot. And we'll come back maybe in a few months and catch up to see what's happening in life and some lessons we can pick up from you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We'll talk soon. So I'm just going to end with our little outro here.